for friends who may not be able to join us. And we'll get started. So here's our chart that we've been using all week where we are, let me meet our friends, where we are looking at all the different tribes. Well, first we looked at us, our environment, our clothing, food, and shelter, and then we talked about the different Native American tribes that we've learned about. We talked about the Lakota Sioux. Their environment are the grassy plains, a big flat field from Central America. They wear buffalo skin leather clothing and decorate it with beads. Their main source of food is buffalo, and their shelter is a teepee. That's to help them hunt the buffalo, because buffaloes don't stay in one place. The other Native American tribe we learned about was the Wampanoag tribe. The Wampanoag tribe, their environment is near the sea in a bay. Their clothing is very similar to the Lakota, so they use the skin or leather from animals. They also talked about feather head dressing and beads and seashells to decorate clothing with. Their main source of food were things they could get from the sea, like clams and fish. And they lived in wetus, which is a small permanent house. Then we have the Lenape, which is what we learned about yesterday. Who remembers the shelter for the Lenape? What is their shelter? What does it look like? Russell? Do you remember what we called them?
Lenape.
Yeah, but their shelter, what were their houses called?
Wetu.
Yep, wetus and longhouses. Very good. Some called it a wetu, some called it a longhouse. Either one is correct. So they lived in longhouses or wetus. Or, I'm sorry, wigwams. Wigwams looked very similar to wetus, except they were much longer. Your entire family would live in a wigwam. Your aunt, your uncles, your grandma, your grandpa, mom, dad, brothers, sisters. Okay. What was their main source of food? Does anyone remember the food that the Lenape ate? There was one crop in particular that they would speak about a lot. What crop was that? Ryan?
Corn.
Corn, you're exactly right. Corn was a crop that grew very well in their environment. They also harvested foods like pumpkins and different things like that, but corn was one of the big crops that the Lenape used. Now that brings me to talk about their environment. Where did the Lenape live? Where did they live? Raise your hand if you remember. Where did they live? Let's see. Adeline, do you remember? Nora, sweetie, mute your microphone for me.
I think they live in a house.
Did they live at the beach, or where did they live?
It's a house that they live in that looks like this.
Yeah, that's a teepee. The Lenape lived in a longhouse or a wigwam, but their environment was, what was their environment? The forest. The forest was their environment, or the woods. That's where they lived. Think of the mountains of North Carolina, the Appalachian Mountains. That's a Native American name. That's where you might find the Lenape tribe. And their clothing was very similar to all the other Native American tribe clothing. They did talk about the feathered headdress that a chief would wear, but they used feathers to decorate their clothing. Now our entire chart is filled out about all the Native American tribes. Well, in today's read aloud, I think you're really going to enjoy it because we are going to review all of the tribes that we've talked about, as well as learning about some new tribes. Listen carefully to learn the names of the different Native American tribes. And we're going to read this kind of like you would an ABC book. Listen for the names of the different types of homes and the tribes that they lived, the different kinds of foods that they ate. Okay. Long before you or me, Native Americans were running free. Many tribes with many names shared this land for all to see. Okay, remember, a tribe is a group of similar people who share common ancestors, customs, and laws. Ancestors are people that lived before you. So a tribe is a group of people that have the same ancestors. So we're learning about Native American tribes. A is for adobe, bricks made Pueblo houses. So adobe bricks. What tribe did I just name here? A is for adobe. The adobe tribe lived in places like Arizona in the desert. They are a Native American tribe that lived in houses made of sand and sun-dried bricks that were also called adobe bricks. So the sand would dry, you would mix it with water and clay, and which they got from their environment in the desert, and it made bricks, which they then used to make houses. Some houses nowadays are modeled after the adobe houses of the Native Americans. B is for buffalo that gallop across the plains. Long ago, many buffalo roamed the Great Plains and were hunted for food and other things by different Native American tribes living in the vast grassy area of our country. Now these animals are endangered. That means there aren't very many left. So they are protected in our country. C is for canoe. Canoes that drift on silent rivers. Native Americans, one way for them to travel was on a canoe over the water. They made a boat from long hollowed out logs or the bark of a tree. And you could travel quickly and quietly along the river. D is for drum. Drum songs sung long ago. This drum is made from an animal hide that has been dried and stretched over a hollow piece of wood. And when you bang on it with a mallet, it makes a noise. E is for elders who led their tribe in prayer. We talked about this yesterday. An elder is like a grandma or grandpa, someone who's much older. F is for feasts made of clams and corn. What tribe had a feast made of clams and corn? Who remembers? Raise your hand. Jonyan, what was the name of this tribe that would have a feast with clams and corn? They would have an Umpanog feast. Do you remember the name of the tribe? Ooh. Wampanoag, the Wampanoag tribe. Clams are a type of seafood. The Native Americans that lived near the bay would have clams. That was part of their environment. Remember, all Native Americans love to use parts of their environment. Okay, here's a new tribe we haven't learned about. G is for great tales told with totem poles. Totem poles were carved from logs by certain tribes to tell a story. So these are examples of real totem poles that Native Americans would carve, and each totem pole had an animal on it. And you would tell the story by describing the animal all the way up to the top of the totem pole. Most animals at the top of the totem pole are eagles. We'll learn more about that later. H is for Hopi ovens that baked warm bread. Some Native Americans cooked their food on an open fire, like when we learned about the Lakota Sioux and their teepees. They were able to cook inside their teepee because the roof was open. But some, like the Hopi tribe, baked their bread in this type of oven made from clay. So they would build ovens out of mud and clay and bake their food inside. I is for Iroquois runners on the trail. This Native American tribe is called the Iroquois tribe. They would travel on foot or on horseback or in canoes. The Iroquois were known for being very fast runners. J is for juniper berries, used to dye tan blankets. Juniper berries grow on trees and were used to color clothing or blankets. K is for Kachina dancers who hoped for rain. Different tribes perform different dances and ceremonies to ask for their gods to make things happen or to thank their god. So a lot of tribes would have ritual dances. There was a certain dance for rain, and they believed if they danced the rain dance sometime that week, it would rain. Another thing they would use dancing for was to thank the Great Spirit for their good fortune. L is for longhouses built of logs and bark. Several Iroquois Native American families could each live in longhouses, which had little apartments in it, as it was about the size of 5 of our classrooms. So these longhouses were really big. Look how small the people are in the drawing and how big the longhouses were. So inside one longhouse, each family would have their own room. So you and your family might have a room here. Then your aunt would have a room here with her family, and your uncle with his family, and then maybe the front room would be for the elders, your grandparents. Okay. M is for moccasins, made of leather and beads. Moccasins were shoes worn by many Native American tribes. Some of them were decorated